The experiment was simple. Too simple, in Commander Vethrak's opinion. But the High Council of the Drashan Collective had not asked for his opinion. They had asked for results. Specifically, they had asked him to demonstrate, conclusively, that humans were prey. The logic behind the experiment was airtight, or so the council believed. The Drashan Velk, massive, six-limbed predators with hollow bones and retractable bone spurs along their forearms, were the apex hunters of three separate ecosystems. Their cubs, even starving and frightened, triggered primal submission responses in every species the collective had ever cataloged. The chemistry was undeniable. Velk juvenile distress calls released a neurochemical cocktail in nearby mammals that induced either paralysis or panicked flight. Every species fled. Every species surrendered. It was simply the order of things. The humans were a problem because they refused to be cataloged correctly. Commander Vethrak stood at the observation glass and stared down into Research Sector 7, a 2-kilometer stretch of engineered forest, complete with Drashan standard trees, simulated rainfall, and 4 human engineers who had been told they were conducting a field survey of alien ecology. They had not been told about the cubs. "Release them," Vethrak said quietly. The 3 Velk cubs tumbled into the forest from a concealed chute, striking the undergrowth in a heap of limbs and yelping confusion. They were 8 months old enough to hunt independently in theory, young enough to be terrified in practice. Removed from their mother 3 days ago, kept in isolated holding pens with minimal feeding, they were hungry, disoriented, and broadcasting distress calls at full biological intensity. The lead biologist monitoring the experiment, Dr. Senna Oru, leaned forward in her chair. "Neurochemical dispersal is optimal. The humans should begin showing avoidance behavior in approximately 40 seconds. Vethrak watched. Down in the forest, the 4 human engineers paused in their work. Chief Engineer Daria Osei heard it first, a high-pitched, warbling keen that seemed to vibrate behind her molars. She held up one fist, the universal signal for stop and listen, and her 3-person crew froze immediately. "You hear that?" she asked. "Yeah." Technician Kofi Mensah tilted his head. "Sounds like something's crying." Structural engineer Priya Nambiar had her tablet out. "It's not on any of the listed fauna profiles they gave us." She frowned. "Which is irritating, because someone should have included it. It's coming from the east." The 4th member of the crew, environmental specialist Tomas Ferreira, was already moving toward the sound. "Tomas," Daria called after him. "Protocol." He looked back, eyebrows raised. "It's crying, Daria." She held his gaze for exactly 2 seconds. Then she sighed, tucked her own tablet under her arm, and followed him. In the observation room, Dr. Senna Ora blinked. "That's avoidance would be the expected. They're moving toward the signal," said the junior analyst beside her. "I can see that." Vethrak said nothing. He pressed his 4-fingered hand flat against the observation glass. The Velk cubs were huddled at the base of a broad tree, a tangle of dark fur and trembling limbs. The largest of the 3 had positioned itself between its siblings and the approaching humans, which was instinctively brave and practically useless, given that it was the size of a medium dog and shaking badly enough to rattle its own teeth. Tomas stopped 3 meters away and crouched slowly. "Oh," he said. It was a very small word carrying a very large quantity of feeling. The lead cub, the brave, shaking one, snarled. It was a credible snarl. It had a great deal of tooth behind it. The distress call intensified, taking on a sharper, more defensive edge. Tomas did not move. He sat down cross-legged on the forest floor. Kofi crouched next to him. "They're pack predators, right? 6 limbs. I read the briefing." "They're babies," Priya said flatly, setting her equipment case down carefully so as not to startle them. Daria stood slightly back, running threat assessments in her head. 3 cubs, all subadult, visibly malnourished. You could count ribs on the smallest one, clearly recently separated from a maternal unit. She cycled through possibilities and didn't like any of the ones that explained the situation. "Something's wrong," she said. "These animals shouldn't be out here alone. Someone put them here," Tomas said quietly, not taking his eyes off the cubs. A silence moved through the 4 of them, the particular kind of silence that follows an uncomfortable truth landing cleanly. "Okay," Darius said. "So, let's think about what they need." In the observation room, nobody spoke for a long time. "They're not frightened," Dr. Senna Oru finally said. The neurochemical exposure should have. Their biology is different, Vethrak said. We knew this was a possibility. We knew it as a theoretical possibility. I didn't expect. She gestured at the screen, where Tomas was now slowly extending one hand toward the lead cub, palm up, eyes averted. I didn't expect this. What this was, specifically, was a negotiation. Not the formal kind. Not even a conscious kind, perhaps. But Tomas had been sitting on the ground for 11 minutes now, and the lead cub had moved from snarling to watching, and from watching to sniffing the air with ears pricked forward, and Priya was talking in a low, continuous murmur about structural load tolerances in the way humans apparently talked when they needed to fill space with calm noise. The smallest cub had stopped shaking. It was Kofi who had the idea. We need to give them a reason to come out, he said, looking up at the trees. Something that feels safe. Elevated. Pack predators use height, Daria agreed. Same as big cats back home. High ground, enclosed space, sight lines. So we build them something. Priya looked at him. We're structural engineers, Kofi. Yes, he said. That's why I said it. They used what they had. The survey equipment included cable ties, telescoping measurement rods, a roll of composite mesh designed for soil sampling, and a hand toolkit that Kofi claimed was only technically for geological core extraction, but could do essentially anything if you were creative enough. Daria mapped load-bearing branches while Priya calculated the angles. Tomas remained on the ground as an anchor. The cubs had gotten used to him, and she wasn't going to break that now. Kofi climbed. He was methodical and quick. The platform took shape in the broad fork of the largest tree, a meter-wide shelf of interlocked rods with composite mesh flooring, walls on 3 sides, a gap on the 4th facing the cub's current position. Low enough to be approachable, high enough to feel secure. When it was done, Daria came back down, and the 4 of them moved away to a respectful distance. They waited. The lead cub sniffed the air for a long time. Then it moved. Slow, cautious, testing each step. It reached the base of the tree and looked up, calculating. It climbed. The other 2 followed within seconds, scrambling over each other in their haste. In under a minute, all 3 cubs were curled together on the platform, pressed against the mesh walls, small and still, their distress calls tapering down to nothing. Silence. The good kind. Right, Daria said. Now someone needs to stay with them, while the others go find out who's responsible for putting 3 starving juveniles in an unsupervised forest sector. Her voice was calm. It was a very specific kind of calm, the kind that sat directly on top of a significant amount of anger and was holding it down with both hands. Tomas raised his hand. I'll stay. Nobody was surprised. In the observation room, Commander Vethrak had not moved from the glass. Below him, a human engineer sat at the base of a tree, back against the bark, reading from a tablet, and 3 Vel cubs slept on a structure that hadn't existed an hour ago. The distress calls were gone. The cubs were fed from ration packs Kofi had divided up without being asked. The smallest one had its legs dangling off the edge of the platform, twitching in sleep. The experiment is over, Vethrak said. Dr. Senna Oru looked up. We haven't completed the experiment is over. He stepped back from the glass. File the results as inconclusive. With respect, Commander, they're anything but. They are inconclusive, he said again, because I am not prepared to report to the High Council that humans encountered starving predator cubs and responded by building them furniture. He paused. They would ask what it means, and I don't have an answer that fits any category we currently have. He walked toward the door. Start a new category, he said, without looking back. Asterisk downstairs, Tomas Ferreira turned a page and listened to the cubs breathe and didn't think about any of it at all.